Hey, hey, what you doing on your computer?
What's a computer?
Es el fuego que yo conozco. Es el fuego que yo.
What is the deal, beautiful people? My name is Ramon. This is Lifestyles Defined. And today we are talking about Apple and that silly ad. Is it true? What is a computer? Can an iPad replace your computer? When I first saw this, I thought it was the most pretentious, ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And I kind of still think so, but I had to do my diligence here. I had to really put it to the test, put in the work, and get the answer. Now, I don't consider myself the average person. I think my workflow is quite a bit more elevated than the usual person. I think I'm a little bit more of a power user, and even a power user, right? As I have a career in IT, I am a creative on many different fronts, a YouTuber, a photographer. So I've always felt like Apple was blowing smoke up the masses. And to some degree, I think an iPad could definitely replace a computer for some people, because as it is today, phones have replaced computers. So if a phone could do it, why not just a bigger form factor of a phone? So I split up my computing task in different categories to sort of see how well this iPad can service each. So the first was sort of my everyday activities, one of which is paying bills. That's a part of everyone's daily activity, right? Bills come in whenever the hell they want, and they're due on a specific date, and you got to take care of that. So was I able to do all of what I do on my PC on my iPad? So before I get into this, I should preface something that it was a very convenient time for me to be doing this test, because the Microsoft Edge browser was just released for iPad. It had been on the iPhone and Android for quite some time, but they just released the iPad app. And why this is important to me is on my PC at home, or I'm speaking as if I'm not at home, on my PC, I have my ecosystems, my two different worlds are split into two different browsers. So all of the Lifestyles Defined stuff and all of the photography and all that stuff is sort of automatically logged in on Chrome. And all of my personal stuff, all of my banking information and all of that saved passwords for everything else is saved in Edge. And I like to keep the two worlds separate. So I was very, very happy when Microsoft sort of launched Edge on the different mobile platforms. And here it is again. It's available on the iPad. And what's dope about I keep wanting to say Chrome. What's dope about Edge on the iPad and Chrome as well is it's not this super finicky version of a browser that they're trying to shoehorn in iOS. It is the native Safari code, just wrapped differently. So Chrome's got all their Google stuff around it, and Edge got all their Microsoft stuff around it, and it just works. So the first part of paying the bills was I would check in the browser in my Edge to see all my stuff is there, all my auto website populate is there, passwords are there. I was actually quite happy, paid my car bill, paid my insurance. And then I also went into the App Store and I checked for the apps themselves. And yes, they were there. That was pretty interesting, right? Then on top of all the other stuff that I do, it was all there. For instance, logging in, not in the Creative Suite app for YouTube, but YouTube in the Chrome browser itself. Because when people leave questions in AMA, I need to be able to copy and paste it and throw it in OneNote. And I don't have that ability in the app, but I do in the browser, and it was all there. Running my Feedly without the app in the browser, it was there, and I had the ability of the app, right? Saving things from Feedly into Pocket so I can read them later. It was all there. I really couldn't complain. Email, be it if I preferred the native iOS mail app, or if I preferred the Hotmail app, which I think is the better of the three when talking about the Gmail app next, or I prefer the Gmail app. It was all there, and then it was just general research, right? I mean, it's a bunch of I do a bunch of searching and a bunch of forum diving when I sit down to do these videos for you guys in the AMAs. I do a lot of research, and like you could expect, the iPad did a good job at that. I don't know if you could do a bad job at research, but it is what it is. Taking a look at the business category, right? The real productivity category. So we're talking Excel, we're talking Word, PowerPoint, OneNote, Wunderlist. All that stuff is there and it works beautifully. I mean, when you couple those applications with the keyboard and your ability to just, actually type as fast as you want and in a comfortable position, I think this thing was the iPad is a serious productive device. I had little to nothing to complain about there. Entertainment, I think, is probably an alley-oop for the iPad. I mean, it's made its strides in many other categories, but entertainment is where I always saw the iPad as being at home. I've always argued with people that the iPad is not a mobile device. And people who buy it as such, 2 months later, they find themselves leaving it home. But what it is an amazing consumption device, right? Media consumption. You're talking Netflix, Hulu, YouTube. It's all there. I mean, there's very little that I had to complain about in terms of entertainment on this thing. And not only that, I could load the Kodi app or even the VLC app, and I could connect to one of my NAS and just stream my movies over the network. So I was very pleased with the level of entertainment that was there. And then you've got those 4 speakers that are around this thing that kind of make the experience pretty dope. I don't think there's any tablet or any device running an ARM architecture that could rival the iPad Pro in terms of sound. So that's also something I had to give a notch to Apple. Coming down to what was last but not least very important to me is the creative part of this thing. And for me, it would not include video editing because I just can't get with the video editing on a format like this. I need a mouse and a keyboard. But for photography, I was super impressed. And there's a key thing that changed here. If you'd asked me this question a year ago, I wouldn't even have attempted this video. But since in the latest version of iOS, Apple added a file explorer. And what that does is essentially allows me to now save files from OneDrive down to the iPad. So there's a way for me to actually get my raw files, my raw photography files on the iPad to edit them. Before, that wasn't the case. I mean, yes, you could go and buy the little SD card reader that they have. I had one way back when they had the old connector. I didn't buy it again when they had the Lightning. They upgraded to Lightning. So that wasn't feasible for me. But now, listen, I can tell you, and with the version of Lightroom that's available on the iPad, this thing is serious. I mean, I edited pictures side by side in the desktop and on the iPad, and it was very hard for me to spot the difference, if there was a difference at all. Now, what kind of changed there? The workflow is dope. The flexibility and the power of Lighthouse is dope. What's missing for me in my photography or my creative world right now is a true version of Photoshop. Now, the version of Lightroom that exists is kind of pound for pound the same version that exists on the PC, but the version of there is no version of Photoshop that exists on the iPad. I mean, there's some Photoshop apps, but they each do like this weirdness. Maybe I need to look into them a lot more, but for me, there are two specific parts of Photoshop that I use in my workflow. One, I use the Nik software by Google. I like the Color SF Pro. I like the black and white stuff that's in there. I like the sharpening stuff that's in there. So I actually use those filters on probably every image that I edit. And then secondly, my color grading is done using gradients in Photoshop. So I really need Photoshop to complete my experience, but you know, a lot of photographers will just stop at Lightroom, and that's okay. I'm not willing to take marks away from it. From what I was able to do in Lightroom, I was very impressed with the speed and the ability to do everything I needed to do. And of course, using the pencil. So, I mean, kudos to Apple on that as well. I know at this point you're waiting for the but. I kind of don't have a but. The only thing I didn't like in this experience is, and this is something I've always complained about, which is why I don't like touchscreen laptops. I don't like offsetting my typing position to reaching out to touch the screen, the display. And that's a huge part of the experience right now when using an iPad in such a productive mode. It just throws me off. It's not comfortable. It gets annoying. I find myself not being able to commit to this platform for long periods of time because of that. If they were to throw in a touchpad or find a way to throw in a touchpad, this thing would be amazing. I mean, if they would find a way to sort of give us a mouse, a cursor in iOS, this thing would be damn near perfect. But I guess that's literally my only complaint. Some of the things that really shine, and I will give Apple credit and credence for what they're saying here. The battery life on the iPad. I don't have any laptop today. I've never had any laptop that gets the battery life that I get on my iPad Pro. I feel like I can charge that thing once every 2 weeks. It is a monster. Even after doing like 3 or 4 hours of photo editing in Lightroom with the pencil and the display up high, it can go from like 100 to like 75. It's amazing, really, especially how thin it is. But I guess when you look at the schematics of that thing, it's damn near all battery. So it's whatever. It is what it is. Then there's the portability part. I mean, even with the thickness added by the keyboard and the fact that you got the little the pen flopping around wherever that is, because there's no real way to hold it. I wish it was magnetic like the Surface. It would click somewhere, but it's okay. The iPad is super portable. And I'm not saying something like my Surface 4 isn't portable. What I'm saying is the iPad is just smaller and thinner and ultimately lighter. And there's something to be said for that. I mean, there isn't much arguing here. And as much as it pains me to admit this, Apple's got a point. I mean, they're that demographic that they're targeting in that ad with this little girl. She looks like she's like 5 or 6, and she's like, "What's a computer?" You know what? You'd be an idiot to not know what a computer is, but driving that narrative forward, she doesn't need to know what a computer is. And I think Apple's valid in that ad. And yeah, how about that? I want you guys to leave a comment below. And I know I'm not the only person to sort of to dive into that world. I know some of you do use an iPad on the daily and for your daily, and I know some of you do it at Android. If you do it Android, I want to hear. My Windows fanboys, what do you guys think? What's happening here? Should Microsoft be threatened? You know, is the PC ready to just take a dive? Let me know. If you like the video, like it. Don't forget to subscribe. We got plenty more content coming. My name is Ramon, and I'm out of here. Peace.